Hi, I'm Chris Howard. Welcome to Top of Mind. Joined with another Top of Minder today. Michelle DeClue is going to join me, and we're going to talk about everything customer related, and especially digital twin of the customer. It's a topic that we've been covering at Gartner for a couple of years. It's taken off really nicely, and it covers so many different things that our clients are interested in and talking about. So, Michelle, welcome. Just give us a quick introduction of yourself.
Well, thank you, Chris. So I'm an analyst at Gartner. I do reside in the CIO industry. So that means that I get to see a bit of what you can be inspired from. And my core coverage is in consumer goods and retail.
Yeah, what was your background? What did you do before you came here?
I did a lot of stuff. So I have worked at a vendor. I specialize in product lifecycle management. And this is something that I would say that has been my core coverage for quite a while. I worked in the discrete construction in the beginning parts of PLM, and then I moved over to the recipe base, so food and beverage. So I have that deep granular view, but it's also how do we meet the needs? How do we make sure that we hit the CEO's needs, which is growth and lowering costs?
Yeah, in fact, just before we were doing this, I was looking at the CEO survey results that we are publishing and putting on stage this fall. And growth, of course, is always number one. But one thing that's changed a lot from last year over year, is attention to the customer. I think it's up like 53% from last year, which I think is really positive. My feeling over the last couple of years is they weren't paying enough attention to the customer, but now that's starting to turn. But so let me ask you a pretty fundamental question.
Okay.
What is a customer, Michelle? What is a customer?
So it's funny that you say that, because in our digital twin of a customer team, the first thing that we do, definitely at Gartner, when you're embarking on new research, is define what is this? We got the digital twin part down immediately. The part that we had problems with is what is a customer?
Mm-hmm.
In healthcare, that could be a patient, it could be a provider, it could be several different things. In education, you first think of students, but it also could be alumni, it could be even the faculty, the teachers. In my world of consumer goods, you think of the customer as being the consumer, but for consumer goods, it's actually the retailer. Yeah. So there's several different areas. And of course, we have B2B, and they have different versions of the customer as well. So what we looked at is how do we define customers in a scalable way? So we look at it it could be several different things. One thing it could also be is a machine. And that's something that most people don't think about, but we have great research on machine customers as well.
Yeah, I hope to actually bring the team that wrote that book and do a top of mind with them at some point in the near future as well. It's a fascinating topic, and they're all converging. So another sort of top level question, if you look over the last few years, but especially since Gen AI kind of hit the public consciousness back at the beginning of 23, how have customer expectations changed in all of the forms that you're talking about?
So there's a lot of different things with the customer expectations. One of them is an expectation to have clarity on the data points that are being captured about them and having control over what is actually taken. So there are laws on that, GDPR, but one of the things is understanding when you get to the point that you're actually being creepy. And this is for the companies that are collecting those data points. And so I would say with Gen AI comes a bigger responsibility and understanding the backlash that can come at you, as well as are the data sources being governed properly so that the information that you're getting out is actually accurate.
Yeah, so it has been a bit of a free-for-all in terms of like social media platforms, commerce platforms, that kind of thing, and collecting all kinds of stuff about me, either directly from me or from inference or from other sources and that kind of thing. And I wonder if consumers of all types will push back on that. Are you seeing any pushback on this sort of over-mediated, over-instrumented commercial experience?
Absolutely. I have a family member who, obviously I'm not going to say who it is, but he does not allow his kids to be put on any social media. So there is definitely pushback happening. You also see WhatsApp, where they have more encryption there and they have more privacy. So one of the things that we're seeing is people pushing back on that and also wanting to see how they're being monetized. We also see that with search engines. There's a very popular search engine right now that is getting some heat on how they are tracking every detail. Also, if you have a virtual personal assistant, you may notice that your social media feeds, your advertising changes. So that's something that people are getting concerned about as well. And when I talk to hotels, one hotel chain said that they couldn't go with a prepackaged virtual personal assistant for the room because they could not determine that they would be able to keep their guest privacy rights maintained. So this is a bigger thing that we're seeing, and we are definitely seeing a pushback on it. And we're seeing people get more detailed in how their data is being used and wanting more transparency. So that's something that companies should definitely take a closer look at.
So the customer is a multidimensional thing. It could be a thing, could be a machine, but the ones that we're familiar with are you and
Mm-hmm.
me, right? In all of the forms that we have, sometimes a provider is a customer, sometimes in a B2B situation they switch roles, that kind of thing. There's much more data around customers and their interactions with one another, in this very ambient sort of surrounding of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a couple of years ago I came to you and I said, I have an idea. What if we took the digital twin concept from industrial engineering and applied it to the customers? That's something that we think would be useful. And you said, let me try. And so you did. And so just take us back to that and sort of what intrigued you about that, but also just what is the digital twin of the customer?
So, a digital twin of a customer, I'll start with that first so we can understand everything else that will follow. A digital twin of a customer is a virtual representation of that customer based on past interaction. So, what we saw before was a digital twin of a product. Let's say we had an engine. We could determine what those blueprints or CAD drawing of the engine was. We could see based on usage how much they were hauling, say it was a truck, what the road conditions were, and what the weather conditions were when you would need to maintain it. So from there, we were like, what about a customer? If we took whatever that customer was for that industry and we saw their interactions, could we determine what their next interaction would be? And so it's a different thing. So instead of having this CAD drawing, you would start with a persona and then you would see how they interact. So you would have to have customer engagement for that and have different platforms. It doesn't always have to be digital commerce, but you would have a platform in which you could gauge and manage that. And then you would put it into simulation. And so that's what we call a digital twin of a customer.
Yeah, this is good. And so, the lessons from the industrial side of this, just to replay what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
is you can build up a very high resolution data representation of an object, like an aircraft engine or
Mm-hmm.
name your piece of equipment. And then with a combination of watching it in real time and log information, so past performance information, you can look for things like mean time to failure or what the actual problems are. So if you send somebody into the field to fix it, it's very specific and it's much more productive in that way. And so by saying, okay, we have people or customers in all their forms, patient, student, machine, we have a higher and higher resolution representation of them and the way that they interact. And then you can use that to see when they may take an action, so being predictive. Or you could create a simulation environment where you're using the digital twin of the customer in certain sort of macroeconomic conditions or behavioral economic conditions to see how they might actually react. And so how are our clients responding to that?
So far, there's been a lot of interest, and we do have some, for confidentiality reasons, I can't say who they are, but they are exploring what this is going to be like. And it's very interesting to see and to talk to them about it because there's a common misconception that this is customer 360. We've been doing it forever.
Yeah, I was going to ask because we've talked about this kind of thing for a long
Mhm.
time. It's something fundamentally different here, though, right?
Absolutely. So customer 360, I like to think about it in kind of like a weather situation. And we've seen a lot of weather situations recently with hurricanes coming through the US. So if you want to think about customer 360, it is a hurricane. It is a ton of information coming at you. And it's kind of hard to control all of it and really get, an understanding of it. Where we see this different is with a digital twin of a customer, instead of it coming at you in all ways, you are selecting what type of data sources you want to have. You have the governance over it. You can also weed out different types of data points that are anomalies or outliers to that typical customer behavior. So think of it more of an irrigation of crops of data and analytics. So instead of a hurricane coming through, it's more of an irrigation of data that's coming for you. So it's easier to reap the benefits of it.
And so if I'm a customer in a situation, then I'm using that to enhance my interactions, perhaps, or to reduce friction in an environment. Let me take you somewhere I know you'd like to go, which is to Disney. when I
Okay, yeah.
when I think about customer experience, right, like the Disney park experience is one where we know they use a ton of data to actually optimize the journey through and increasingly personalize it right down to me. So not just as a persona, but to like me as a consumer. I assume this kind of data representation that we're talking about is something that a company like Disney has been doing.
Absolutely. So I'll go into a personal story that will relate it. I am a Disney theme park fan. I do love the coasters. That is my favorite. I will actually go in our Gartner events, like right after work, or if they have early park hours, I will be on that single rider line and go through a roller coaster a few times. So that is my secret there.
We're
But
going to
my
do that
favorite,
together. We are, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
my favorite one is the rock and roll roller coaster that features Aerosmith. So you get to launch off. I go to that all the time. So I went there one year on my birthday and I was very excited to go. It was right after COVID lifted. So we were still wearing masks and everything. I had scheduled that on my app to be able to go there. So I've got my app. It can see my information. It knows because I wear a magic band that I go on this ride continuously. And as I'm going through, I'm standing in the line, which of course is the one thing you don't like about Disney is anytime you have to stand in a line, even if it's just for a few seconds.
Mhm.
So I'm standing there waiting. And all of a sudden, my daughter is like, Mom, look. And all of these posters started lighting up with my name on it, where I was from, and my
Wow.
birthday. So, of course, I was very mature and was like, okay, let's look at this. This is wonderful. No, I look like Jack Nicholson's long lost daughter. I'm like, yay. And I wanted to stay in that line for a long
But
time.
didn't it bother you though from a privacy perspective?
No, I was so excited. I'm like, I'm there in my ride. And this is the thing where this shows you how data should be used. It knows that I love this ride. It knows that I love to be there. And it has my name on there. And it doesn't list my last name. So there is a little bit of privacy. And if I didn't react, nobody would know that it was for me.
And they might not have done it for a different customer whose privacy sensitivities were different, likely.
Exactly. Or someone that is as nerding out as I am about that ride, because that is like my ride. But this is where we look at how can I do things differently. So one of the cool things also about Disney is when I reserve a restaurant, not only can I put in I have an allergy, but it can see, okay, Michelle is actually going to miss this because she's in a totally different park, probably riding that roller coaster again. And they can offer that time slot to somebody else that is there. So
Mm,
it's not only helping me, but it's helping others in the way that they use the data. And
yeah.
I opt in. I have the ability to opt in and share that information. If I didn't want to, I don't have to use that app. I could just go through standby and they wouldn't even know that I was there.
So the beauty of the digital twin of the customer is that it benefits the customer as much as it does the provider. And I think that's a real, so know your customer, KYC or customer
Exactly.
very much around, do I know enough about you to sell you the right thing or give you the, give you this service or to direct you in a certain way, where this is a much more multi-directional, multi-dimensional kind of relationship that you build through digital twin of a customer.
Yeah. And it's not just knowing them. That is a big part, but it's not just knowing them. It's knowing what causes friction for them.
Mm,
And how do you overcome that friction? How do you even do more than overcoming the friction? How do you turn that friction moment into a moment of delight?
good.
And that is the key to digital twin of a customer. It's creating that engagement. It's getting to know them better. And here's
Mm,
something that surprises a lot of people. It can be a one-to-one. It could be a one-to-many. And let me give you an example of that. So at Gartner, we travel for work quite a bit.
mhm.
So a lot of times we stay at a specific hotel chain. And when I go there for work, I don't really care how much the breakfast costs. I don't care if I have to make a copy, how much that costs. I'm there for proximity to clients or to the event and to get things done for that reason. When I travel for personal reasons, I'm wanting to find that free breakfast, maybe a free happy hour, maybe something in there. At both of them, I'm still going to be who I am. I'm going to be a female traveler. I'm still going to have my food allergy, but I'm going to have different reasons and purposes for going. So in that, it may be a one to many for me. So one of the
Mm,
purposes of digital twin of a customer is also extrapolating. Could we create another digital twin, a Gen AI situation based on what we
mm.
know? So what would this
Yeah.
person need if they're a personal traveler, if we have them for business? What can we offer them to entice them to come back?
Yeah, so there's a thread of hopefulness in there in a way that you're controlling in some ways how your persona interacts with the world as opposed to it being controlled for you. I don't think we're entirely there yet, but if you think about the nature of identity and
Mhm.
ambient information around you and how you want to interact with the world, that should actually be something that we control ourselves, right? And
Exactly.
I don't think we're there yet, but I think that's an ultimate design would be to get to that. Okay, so as we
I'm
round out,
smiling, Chris, for one reason. I
yeah,
just have to interrupt you for a second.
do that.
We will get there soon. I have clients that are working on it, and I can't tell you who they are, but what I can tell you is one of the pieces of advice that I gave them. So let's just say we're going to a quick service restaurant and we're on the app. Right now, it's just got all of my information in there the way that it's entered. What if instead it could be similar to when you log into, say, a Netflix or a Disney or an Amazon Prime, where you define the persona that you want to have? So it doesn't have to be your exact information. That could be encrypted. And in addition to that, you could have other personas that travel with you or come with you to that location. So this is one of the things to think about for people that are concerned about security, and that what if we offered them a way to interact with us that anonymizes the information, but also specializes it? So for example, I'm still a Gen Xer and I like my coffee hot. My daughter is a Gen Zer. She loves it cold. So this is one of those things where we could have those personas, and then they can offer things that they know fit in with those personas to have better service in those ways.
Yeah, I'd be happy with just a Gen X line and a Gen Z line at because I know which one to choose. That takes us to the last thing I wanted to ask you about, sort of where this research goes. What you're starting to edge into is something we might call total experience or core customer experience. How do all of these different concepts fit together, and where does it go from here?
That's a great question. So a lot of times I like to give people out of technology example of what this is to kind of give them some background on it. So CX Core is knowing who you're designing for and why they're mad at you, which is a lot of people push back on that. It could be, why aren't we awesome? I'm like, because this is not a Lego movie. You need to know what their friction point is. But the way that I would relate it is, think of your favorite band. They didn't start off in arenas with fireballs. They started off on a guitar or a piano, finding a key. That's what CX Core is, finding the key to your customers. After that, they probably brought in some band members. They had a guitar, but they also had a drum that set the beat. They're setting the beat for that. That is total experience, where you can see how do they interact? What are the beats in different types of interactions? Say for retail, how often do they go to the store? Do they go to the store to pick up something? Do they get curbside? Do they like to buy in the store? Do they use AR and VR? How are we seeing them interact with technology? Are they asking for a concierge type of experience with the designer, for example? Then we start seeing, when do they drop out? Where do we see churn? Are they waiting for a promo code? What's happening? How do we keep them engaged? From all that type of information, then we can extrapolate and simulate what we think will help entice them in the future. And it's not always something that costs money. One of the things I tell people is, you will be surprised how much exclusivity drives this. So from there, once you've got the beat from the key, now we're going to go in and start playing more gigs and more gigs. And then we get to the point where we understand this. We've got the rhythm. We're ready to go. We've got the crowd enthused. And then we can start the fireballs and starting that type of excitement and drive into a big mosh pit. So I know that's not a super technical, lots of digital platform technology, but you can't start in an arena with fireballs. You have to start with a song, build your base, understand them, and then meet those needs.
Yeah, and of course, we don't have time to get into it, but there are a lot of technical implications underneath this, what we do with our data, issues of privacy in different geos. So it's a whole kinds of things the team is also talking about. So there's a whole set of architectural advice that comes along with creating the fireballs in the arena, right?
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that. Okay, so two things. First one is, we are building a workshop. We have an amazing digital twin of a customer team that includes people like Patrick Hevesy, who is a GTP security analyst. We have Bart Williamson, who does privacy. We have Al Velosa, who looks at the data sources in tech. We have a whole bunch of people there. And of course, Don Scheibenreich, who does machine customers. So we're really getting a big team together, and we're putting out a multi-component, so a modular or composable, as we like to say, composable architecture workshop. That'll be out in 2025. But right now, we need to start with that key and the beat. So we've got some great research, and I'm very excited about it because it was definitely a team effort. But Chris, we have something that we've never done before, which I kind of think is a Homer Simpson like, duh moment. How did we not do this? We have the business capabilities, which is the strategy, the inspiration points. And we worked with a lot of different people across Gartner in every practice on this. And so we have that on the slide. Next to it, we have the technology that you will need to support this, because a lot of times, people are like, okay, that's great. I love the idea. How do I do this? And we're like, okay, well, you'll go to this person to talk about that next. No, it's all on the slide. And even if you're not a Gartner, client, one of the things you need to know is you do need to put it on the same page. What are you needing to do? What is the tech to do it? And in our research, Chris, we also put the market guides and magic quadrants in the notes so you can go to the next step. So again, put it all
Yeah.
on the same slide, inventory, know what you need to replace, and scale up. And that's what we have. We have a scale up type of approach for it.
That's,
And it's
so,
something
so
that I think is needed.
it is. Yeah. So it is a fancy idea. Let's just be clear. But it also has substance too in terms of how you pull it off across multiple industries and so on, which is why I think this is such a rich vein of research and insight that we have that's going to continue to grow. So thank you for a couple of things. Thanks for leading this research for me and for bringing it to life, because I think it's been creative and fun and interesting, and it's engaging for clients. But also thanks for joining me here today. It's nice to
Oh, thank you.
have guests. It's great to see you, and it's kind of fun to talk about this stuff. And so for everybody out there, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Top of Mind.